James Monroe. James Monroe, who, at just 18 years old, found himself in the thick of battle. And I'm not talking about a schoolyard scuffle. We're talking about the Revolutionary War, specifically the Battle of Trenton. This was the epic moment when George Washington led his troops across the icy Delaware River in a surprise attack against the Hessians. And young Monroe? He was right there in the action, serving as a lieutenant in the Continental Army. Monroe was part of a small group of soldiers sent to take out an artillery position that was making life miserable for the Continental troops. As he charged toward the cannon with another soldier, things took a turn for the worse. A musket ball struck him in the shoulder, severing an artery. But here's where fate stepped in. A fellow soldier, Dr. John Riker, happened to be nearby. With the cool-headedness of a battlefield medic, Riker quickly applied a tourniquet to Monroe's wound, stopping the bleeding and saving his life. Monroe was then taken to a makeshift hospital, where he spent weeks recovering from his injury. The bullet? It stayed lodged near his shoulder for the rest of his life, a permanent reminder of his service and sacrifice. Now, you might think after that close call Monroe would call it quits, but you'd be wrong. Monroe was determined to keep fighting for the cause of independence. He continued to serve in the Continental Army, showing the same grit and determination that would later define his presidency. Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce, the 14th President of the United States, had a rather unconventional start to his military career. With no prior experience, Pierce was appointed as a brigadier general in the Mexican-American War in 1847. Thanks to his political connections and strong support for the war, Pierce quickly found himself leading troops in the grueling march to Mexico City. This wasn't just a walk in the park. His men faced scorching heat, disease, and rough terrain. For a politician-turned-soldier, it was a trial by fire, or in this case, by sweat. Pierce's big moment came during the Battle of Contreras on August 19, 1847. While leading his men, his horse suddenly stumbled, and Pierce was pinned underneath, injuring his knee. Despite the pain, he stubbornly refused to leave the field and tried to continue leading his troops. It wasn't the heroic war wound he might have hoped for, but it showed his determination, perhaps too much of it. Unfortunately, Pierce's injury didn't do much for his reputation. Some critics, likely political rivals, accused him of cowardice. While these claims were mostly unfounded, the whispers were enough to stick around. Even so, Pierce stayed with his command and participated in the capture of Mexico City, showing that he wasn't about to let a little thing like a busted knee keep him down. Pierce's service in the Mexican-American War helped bolster his political career, painting him as a leader willing to put himself on the line, literally. This experience played a key role in his rise to the presidency, even if his term in the White House was as tumultuous as his time on the battlefield. Rutherford B. Hayes. Rutherford B. Hayes, the 19th president, is the guy who could have used a bit more luck, or maybe just a better map, because he managed to get wounded 4 times during the Civil War. That's right, 4 times. Let's break it down. First wound. Hayes got a little too close to the action at Giles Courthouse, Virginia, where a shell fragment decided his right knee needed a bit of an adjustment. Second wound. Just when his knee was healing up, Hayes took a musket ball to the left arm at the Battle of South Mountain in Maryland. Talk about a bad year. Third wound. Fast forward a couple of years, and Hayes is still in the thick of it. This time, at the Battle of Winchester, Virginia, a musket ball smacked him in the head and shoulder. Ouch. Again. Fourth wound. Finally, at the Battle of Cedar Creek, Virginia, Hayes got shot in the ankle, had his horse shot out from under him, and was even mistakenly reported dead. But instead of kicking back and saying, "I'm done," Hayes got promoted to brigadier general the next day. Talk about bouncing back. Hayes's time as a human pincushion definitely toughened him up, and his battlefield bravery earned him a lot of respect, enough to help him win the presidency later on. John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, whose wartime story sounds more like a Hollywood blockbuster than real life. And honestly, it did become a movie. But before the fame and the presidency, Kennedy was a young naval officer during World War II, commanding a patrol torpedo boat known as PT-109. On the night of August 2, 1943, in the treacherous waters of the South Pacific, PT-109 was sliced in half by a Japanese destroyer. The collision was catastrophic. 2 crew members were killed instantly, and the survivors, including Kennedy, were left stranded in shark-infested waters with nothing but wreckage to cling to. Now, most people might panic in a situation like this, but not Kennedy. Despite suffering from a serious back injury, he grabbed the strap of a badly wounded crew member's life vest in his teeth and swam for hours, towing the man through miles of open water until they reached a tiny, uninhabited island. But the ordeal wasn't over. The island offered little in the way of food or water, and the crew was still in grave danger. Here's where things get really interesting. Kennedy and another crew member swam to a neighboring island, hoping to find help. They encountered two native islanders who were friendly, but there was a communication barrier. So what did Kennedy do? He grabbed a coconut, yes, a coconut, and carved a message into it. Nauru Island. Native knows. Posit. He can pilot. 11 alive. Need small boat. Kennedy. That coconut became their lifeline. The islanders delivered the message, and soon after, the crew was rescued. Kennedy's resourcefulness didn't just save his men, it became legendary. He was awarded the Purple Heart for his bravery and heroism, and the coconut, Kennedy kept it as a memento, eventually turning it into a paperweight on his desk in the Oval Office.